A cold sweat breaks out on Jungkook's forehead as he comprehends the gravity of the situation. He freezes, a knot of panic tightening in his stomach. The realization hits him: if Taehyung hears him now, he'll recognize the voice that echoed in his fantasies for months. There's no escape from the truth. So, in response to Taehyung's question, all Jungkook can muster is a hesitant whimper, a feeble protest against the impending revelation. Taehyung, puzzled by the hesitant whimper, decides to take matters into his own hands. Without waiting for a clear response, he reaches up and removes the blindfold. Shock registers on his face as he beholds the person before him the next second. The same person who had fueled his fantasies and played the role of his phantom pleasure. For a moment, time seems to freeze. Jungkook, now fully exposed, meets Taehyung's gaze with a mix of anxiety and vulnerability. The room, once an intimate sanctuary, transforms into a stage where the lines between fantasy and reality blur in startling clarity. The silence is broken by a breath Taehyung didn't realize he was holding. His features contort in a mix of disbelief and recognition. The truth unfolds before him, and the consequences of their dark encounter unravel with each passing second. As the weight of revelation hangs in the air, Taehyung's mind races to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. Jungkook, still frozen in unease, watches the myriad of emotions flicker across Taehyung's face: disbelief, realization, and perhaps a hint of defenselessness. The room, once charged with sensual energy, crackles with a different kind of tension. It's a moment suspended in time, where the boundaries between desire and consequence become increasingly blurred. Taehyung's voice breaks the silence, a mixture of confusion and vulnerability evident in his tone. Jungkook, unable to meet Taehyung's eyes, shakes his head nervously, his throat tight with unspoken words. The truth hangs heavily between them, a revelation that neither of them anticipated. The phantom pleasure, a mysterious figure in the shadows of desire, now stands exposed as someone so familiar yet so distant. A wave of conflicting emotions washes over Taehyung: the thrill of the forbidden encounter, the shock of discovering the true identity of his secret fantasy, and the realization that the consequences of their actions are now unavoidable. The room feels charged with the unspoken, and as Taehyung rises from the chair and takes a step closer, the air crackles with tension once again. Taehyung's mouth opens as if to speak, but Jungkook interrupts with a nervous shake of his head. He hastily gathers the kimono from the floor, avoiding Taehyung's gaze. Taehyung watches him, a mixture of emotions playing across his face: confusion, regret, and a tinge of sadness. Jungkook, feeling the weight of the gaze upon him, rushes toward the door. Jungkook, wait! Taehyung calls out, his voice filled with a desperate urgency that echoes in the dimly lit room. Jungkook hesitates, his hand resting on the doorknob, heart racing as he contemplates the consequences of staying or leaving. The air between them is thick with unspoken words, a moment teetering on the edge of clarity and confusion. I need to know. Taehyung's voice softens, an earnest plea that draws Jungkook's attention. Why didn't you tell me it was you? The question hangs in the air, piercing through the tension like a whisper in a storm. Jungkook's resolve begins to waver as he faces Taehyung, the vulnerability in the man's eyes igniting a flicker of hope within him. Jungkook starts, but the words get caught in his throat. Please, Taehyung urges, stepping closer, closing the gap between them. Talk to me. With a heavy sigh, Jungkook turns back to face Taehyung fully, the weight of the moment crashing down around them. I was scared, Taehyung. Scared of what this would mean, scared of what you think. Taehyung's expression softens, a mixture of empathy and understanding washing over his features. You don't have to be scared. I wanted this. I wanted you. The confession hangs between them, a fragile bridge over the tumult of their emotions. Jungkook's heart races, caught between the fear of rejection and the intoxicating possibility of acceptance. Taehyung steps even closer, the intensity of his gaze locking onto Jungkook's. What we had, it was real, wasn't it? Yes, Jungkook replies, voice barely above a whisper. It felt real, then let's make it real again, Taehyung suggests, reaching out to gently touch Jungkook's cheek, his thumb brushing against soft skin. Let me in, Jungkook. Please. With those words, the final barrier begins to crumble. Jungkook nods, surrendering to the warmth of Taehyung's presence, ready to embrace the truth of their connection. A bond forged in fantasy now blossoming into something deeper. Wait. Jungkook, please. Taehyung's voice is barely a whisper, trembling with a vulnerability that surprises even him. The reality of who stands before him sinks in like a sudden weight, and his mind races to make sense of the scene unraveling before him. Jungkook pauses, his hand on the doorknob, shoulders tense as though bracing himself. He doesn't turn around, and for a moment, the silence is deafening, filled with all the words they've left unsaid. Why? Taehyung's question hangs in the air, laced with a mix of disbelief and hurt. Why didn't you tell me? Why hide behind this fantasy? Jungkook grip tightens on the doorknob, his knuckles white, as he finally lets out a shaky breath. He turns slowly, gaze lowered, the weight of his own emotions evident in the way he shifts, as though trying to shield himself from Taehyung's piercing stare. I didn't think it would matter, he murmurs, voice thick with the uncertainty he's carried alone. A part of him wants to flee, to escape the intensity of Taehyung's gaze, the confrontation he'd never prepared himself for. But another part, the part that's longed for this moment even as he feared it, keeps him rooted in place, unable to look away now that everything is laid bare. Taehyung takes a step closer, his expression softening as he studies Jungkook, seeing the cracks in the bravado, the layers of vulnerability that lie beneath. But it does matter, Jungkook. You matter, he says, voice soft yet firm, each word filled with the truth he's only now coming to understand. Jungkook's breath hitches, his defenses faltering as he dares to meet Taehyung's gaze, searching for any sign of rejection, any hint that he's overstepped the invisible boundaries they'd never quite defined. But all he finds is a tenderness that melts the knot of fear coiled within him. In the quiet that follows, Taehyung's hand reaches out, brushing lightly against Jungkook's arm, a gesture that feels more intimate than any of the moments they'd shared in the shadows. This was never just fantasy, he murmurs, voice barely above a whisper. Not for me. Jungkook's gaze softens, and he takes a hesitant step forward, heart pounding as he lets himself believe, just for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, the truth between them could be enough. And in that fragile, breathless moment, they find themselves standing on the edge of something real, a new beginning wrapped in the vulnerability of shared secrets and silent confessions. The room, once filled with tension, now holds the quiet possibility of forgiveness, of understanding, and perhaps, of something even deeper. Wait, Jungkook at the boy, still driven by a sense of self-preservation, looks back, shakes his head, and mutters, smiling nervously. "I've already been paid, sir. You don't need to worry about anything." He opens the door, stepping out into the dimly lit hallway, leaving Taehyung alone in the private room. The door clicks shut, marking the end of an encounter that started as a tantalizing fantasy and ended with the harsh reality of exposure. Jungkook steps into his apartment, the dim glow of the streetlights filtering through the curtains. The clock on the wall reads closer to 2 in the morning. He had left work earlier, claiming a stomachache as a fabricated excuse. But in reality, the knot of anxiety that had tightened in his chest as soon as he was back in the dressing room made it increasingly difficult for him to even breathe. As he closes the door behind him, the weight of the evening presses on his shoulders. He sheds the remnants of the night, each piece a reminder of a role he played, a fantasy he embodied. The echo of Taehyung's voice, the mix of emotions on his face, reverberates in Jungkook's mind. The small apartment feels both too familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. He moves through the space like a ghost in his own life. The boy heads to the bathroom, the harsh light revealing the toll the night has taken on him. His own image in the mirror reflects not just the physical exhaustion but the emotional turmoil that simmers beneath the surface. He turns on the faucet and splashes water on his face, hoping to wash away the lingering traces of the encounter. The reflection in the mirror stares back at him with a mixture of weariness and vulnerability. Jungkook takes a shaky breath, leaning against the bathroom counter. The truth, now exposed, hangs over him like a heavy cloud. The sound of running water fills the bathroom as he steps into the shower cabin. The water cascades over him, a feeble attempt to wash away not only the physical remnants of the night but also the emotional residue that clings to his skin. The steam envelops him, creating a cocoon of solitude within the tiled walls. Jungkook leans against a cool surface, the contrast between the heat of the water and the chill of the tiles mirroring the conflicting emotions swirling within him. His mind drifts back to the encounter, the memory of Taehyung's voice, the mix of desire and confusion etched into his memory. The echo of his own hesitant whimpers and the desperate plea of Daddy still reverberate in the corners of his mind, and shame courses through him as he recalls the intimate moments that unfolded in the private club room. The water pelts down, a rhythmic drumbeat that matches the cadence of Jungkook's racing heart. He can't escape the images that flicker in his mind, the play of shadows on Taehyung's face, the sensation of lace against his skin, and the vulnerability laid bare in the dimly lit room. The steam begins to blur the edges of reality, but the memories remain crystal clear, haunting yet intoxicating. He grips the edge of the shower, closing his eyes as the water cascades down, intensifying the ache within him. Each droplet seems to echo the weight of regret, guilt, and longing that now define the space around him. His breath trembles as he lets himself feel, unguarded and exposed, under the cascade of warm water. There's no hiding now, no more masks to shield him from the truth that has unraveled before him. The boundaries he'd tried to maintain shattered the moment he saw Taehyung's face, the raw vulnerability, the quiet pain in those familiar eyes. It leaves a pang in Jungkook's chest, both a wound and a reminder of what he can never fully escape. This was not merely a role he played, it was a window into the uncharted depths of himself he never wanted anyone, especially Taehyung, to see. Lost in his thoughts, Jungkook doesn't hear the faint buzz of his phone in the other room, a beacon of reality trying to pierce through the fog.